All right, class. My name is Justin Coggins. I'm here to present the Plasma LCD LED Ultra HD TV case study. Just to get into my analysis of the case study and what I took from it is that it's really hard to differentiate between TVs in the modern era. Back in the day, you used to look at the big, bulky TV and it was like, oh my God, what is that dinosaur? And now basically everything's a flat screen when you go into the stores. They've lowered the prices significantly for all flat screens because I feel like it used to be more of like a premium product. And you used to feel like you were really a fancy person when you had a flat screen. Because I remember when I was kids and my parents went out and dropped like 2 grand on a TV, and everyone was looking at it like, oh, what is this space age technology? The screen is flat, and we still had the big box in my bedroom. And now, if you just look into the corner of my screen, you can really see this little flat screen just hanging on the wall. So as we've gotten more modern, we don't look at flat screens with the same reverence, and I believe it's because it's really hard to differentiate between flat screens. Like the case study goes into like 720p, 1080p. Now you can't even tell how many pixels are on the screen because they're so invisible or so minute, like on iPhones and stuff like that. And that's only just a little bit of time probably till it comes to TVs. And you got the different types of backlighting, all that different stuff. And it really, to me, just it's hard to tell the difference between TVs. Like you just look at a flat screen and like the only differentiating factor I see nowadays is like there's like the curved TV and the Ultra HD TVs, which it does get into. But when you go from plasma, LCD, LED, and even Ultra HD, it's like really hard to tell what the difference is between one and the other. So to get into the actual questions, though, the first question is along the lines of asking, how do we get the total value from TVs? Uh, Total value concept is practiced by assessing all the different things customers derive value from. So it's going to get into again where like it's really hard to tell the value, like the difference. So customers expect a good frame rate from TVs. So 60 frames per second, stuff like that, like is the standard for that for TVs and in video games and stuff like that. So they expect it to not be laggy. Obviously, this isn't a problem in the modern era. Customers expect a good pixel rate, which 1080p is about as good as it gets right now with TVs. 1080 is 1080 pixels. So unless you have a flat screen and you have your eyeballs in the screen, you're not going to see the pixels. And it even talks about how iPhones nowadays, like you can't even tell how many pixels are on the screen, which we get into it is actually bad for the consumer in a way. But that is along the lines of the next question or a couple questions from now. And also, customers expect TVs to not blur during fast-paced shows. It did get into that. That was a problem in the start of like flat screens when you would watch like NFL on Sundays and stuff like that. You wouldn't be able to differentiate what was happening on the screen sometimes because it would get blurry during fast-paced movements. And then the next question was along the lines of integrity, how you should have your TVs on the floor of a store. So like, let's say you go to Best Buy, should you have it tweaked to the Ultra HD, most power consuming, or that this certain background is going to look the best at the store, or should you just have it on the out of box settings? To me personally, I feel like I'm a little honest, Abe. I would leave it on the out of box settings. I think that reduces dissatisfaction possibly due to customers returning TVs because they thought it looked a lot better on the floor than it actually does when they get the TV. And then same thing with returns. Maybe it's bad enough where they think that wow, this TV is so different now. When I bring it home, I don't even want it anymore. I couldn't see that honestly in a real world like situation, but academically it is possible that like someone would see a TV and then think it's so bad once they got home, then return it because the settings were different on the floor. The next question, I kind of made a little joke is lots of pixels, trust me. The next question was basically the new Retina display on iPhones has like unspecified amount of pixels. So it's hard to tell for a consumer, like if they're getting a better picture because it used to be like 720p, 1080p, and if even had it at 1440p or whatever, that's how many pixels you were getting on the screen. But now the Apple has basically said like we got so many pixels that it's clear, but there's not an actual differentiating of how many pixels it is. So like me, I would want to know maybe it's like 2000. Just tell us, and then the better quality would be 2100. Basically stuff like that. So basically, unable to put a number on the pixel count makes it hard to judge actual quality of picture. Because if you're not actually there or not actually able to put a number on it, you can't really tell. And then when you get a bigger screen, maybe that pixel rate drops off because they're not being honest about it, and you can actually see the little pixels on the screen. The next question was along the lines of being a plasma TV salesman. Plasma TVs, at least to me, what I remember, are like the first kind of HD TVs. They have great quality pictures and great frame rate, but I remember that they actually get physically hot. And I remember my mom used to tell me not to leave the TV on pause because that like the actual thing could like the picture could get like seared into the TV, and then it would ruin it if you left it on pause and it had the same image on it for too long. But they have great quality and stuff like that. So as a salesman, I think your job is to pull, the good of your product to the light and try to keep the bad in the dark as much as possible, as bad as that sounds. So I would talk about the great quality of picture, the great frame rates, the great amount of pixels, and if they bring up the power consumption and the heat and stuff like that, you do have to be honest. But I would push those good factors before I talk about anything that's gonna push it down the product. The last question kind of got into what I thought like the whole basis of the case study was HD TVs over time and what the perception is. I think it used to be perceived as like a quality item or even like a fancy item to have a flat screen in your TV. I think it has the same evolution of telephones. It used to be those big bricks that you put on your head, your face, and it would look all crazy, or at least that's what my parents tell me because I wasn't alive then. And now everyone has their own iPhone, or even you go back to Nokia flip phone, stuff like that. But now if you don't have an iPhone, like what's wrong with you? Or an Android with the same kind of screens. So yeah, basically TVs went kind of along that same evolution in the way they're perceived by the public. They used to be marketed as like a high-end item that was only available to people with thousands to put down. As I stated previously, my parents spent like a couple thousand on a flat screen one time, a plasma TV. That was actually the one where don't pause it on the thing. And now they're marketed for everybody. You can go to Best Buy and get a flat screen, not like a big huge one, but for just a couple $100s. And in fact, it'd be hard to find a TV being sold that is not an HD TV. So let's make sure I put that there. Yeah. It'd be hard to find a TV that's not actually a high definition TV. Like I would actually challenge somebody to find a TV that is a box at a store. It's probably not possible. And then back in the day, it used to be the opposite. The HD TVs were perceived and like as a very high end item, and then the big box TVs were not. But that's kind of the nature of things. As consumers get more and more used to a product, they aren't perceived the same. You don't have as big of margins because they're not as fancy or as new. And that is the end of my presentation. I went through the summary and the questions of the case study. So I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for your time.